Hey folks, it's Swank Ivy with another Letters to an Asexual. I think this is number 53. I didn't check, so if I'm wrong, sorry. I would like to talk about something that really upsets me, and that is homophobia and transphobia in the ace community. Let me start off with a little bit of background. So, on very rare occasions, I feel like this happens when people take words out of context or they just don't understand what they're reading. But there have been a few times where people who are some form of LGB or, well, I haven't really gotten this from trans people, so I guess I'll just say people who are lesbian or gay, or really it's just lesbian or gay, I think, that I've had them give me sort of some oblique criticism suggesting that my book or my works are homophobic or something like that. And every time that I could trace back what these people said, why they said that about me, it was always either something that they seem to have deliberately taken out of context to make it look like I was saying pretty much the opposite of what I was saying, or they just led it to a completely different conclusion of what I was saying. You know, such as a time where I talked about how it isn't really fair that, say, straight women are getting AIDS at a faster, more plentiful rate than lesbians do. And yet, if you're a lesbian, you can still be looked at as if you have AIDS, it's because it's a gay disease, you know, even though lesbians have it less often than straight women do. And, you know, I was talking about this, and I was talking about how if you've lost someone to AIDS and you have no association with the LGBT community yourself, but you've lost somebody in your family or some close friend of yours to AIDS, you know, you can get really frustrated by the way that oh, we have AIDS in our community, so how dare you say that you know what it's like to lose someone to AIDS if you've never lost someone to AIDS. You know, like, I have lost an uncle to AIDS, and, you know, I'm not gay, I'm not a lesbian, but, you know, I do know what it's like to lose someone in your family to AIDS. So, you know, I kind of get irritated when people kind of use that, they weaponize, like, you don't know the pain of, you know, AIDS affecting your community if you're not LGB. And I'm just thinking there are definitely other ways. But in that same conversation, I said, despite the fact that you can have this happen to you in your life, that doesn't mean that your community or you know, you as a person know what it's like to have this kind of stigma against your community. Like, I was basically saying that they're right, that there's this stigma that AIDS is a gay disease and that it's some kind of just punishment from God or something, like these horrible things that people believe about AIDS. So, I mean, regardless of, you know, the fact that I don't have to be gay to know what it's like to lose someone to AIDS, I'm never going to use that as a weapon the way that I've seen some people do. You know, and because I was trying to have this nuanced conversation with someone who, you know, wasn't paying attention to what I was actually saying, you know, they were trying to make it seem like I was saying the opposite of what I was saying, which is, you know, that, oh, my pain is worse than your pain because I've actually lost someone to AIDS, therefore I know what it's like to be marginalized that way, or to personally be labeled as having this association with a terrible disease. And, you know, just, okay, this is kind of getting convoluted, but anyway, I've had this kind of conversation with people who come out on the other side saying, well, you said something homophobic. And, you know, even though I don't believe that, you know, anything that I'm saying is rooted in homophobia, and I believe that everything that people have suggested that I've said, that if they're saying it's a homophobic statement, it means that they really did not understand what I was saying. You know, because one of the most important things to me in my activism is that I don't throw anybody else under the bus, and I'm generally very careful about that. And because I know I'm not perfect, and because I know that my words don't necessarily come across the way that I want them to, especially for my publications, including my book, I always had sensitivity readers. I had people from the groups that I was talking about trying to read this stuff and making sure that it came across the way that I intended. And, you know, again, even if you do something like that, it doesn't mean that you're never gonna make a mistake, or you have like the gay community has signed off on you and you can't possibly be saying anything homophobic. I know that is, you know, that's not the case. But, you know, I don't believe that any of the things that I've said on the record are actually homophobic if you read what I said. On the other hand, I have seen some folks in mostly in lesbian and gay circles try to say that if you ever claim that a lesbian or a gay person is being acephobic or could possibly do that to ace people, then you're being homophobic, because, like, how dare you suggest as an asexual person that they could possibly oppress anyone if they're an oppressed group. And this gets really dicey, because a lot of what they're getting offended over is that they consider asexual people to be indistinguishable from heterosexual people, and that right there is you know, it's an acephobic thing to say. But you know, what they're doing is they're framing it as if we, the asexual people, even sometimes if we claim another LGBT or T identity, they'll still say, well, whatever, you're a cishet, you don't, if you're asexual, then you're cishet, and there's nothing that you can say about that won't make us think of you as part of that group. You know, that's a really very frustrating perspective for us. But it is absolutely true that it is possible for you to be part of a marginalized group and still participate in othering, oppressing, or marginalizing someone else. With sexual diversity, with marginalized groups who are marginalized along a sexual orientation related aspect of their identity, it can get very complicated to figure out, because, you know, some people are trying to say, well, are you more oppressed than him? Am I more oppressed than you? That's not what anybody who's having a meaningful conversation about this is really trying to figure out. And I just believe that there are some ways that asexual people and some ways that non-ace LGBT people can experience marginalization and oppression, that all of it is rooted in these aspects of culture that normalize heterosexuality. The heteronormative assumption is where all of it starts, but it can manifest to different degrees and in different ways to both of our groups. There are many ways in which those things overlap, but they're not identical, especially, you know, if, say, there's me as an aromantic asexual person who, you know, I am gender normative enough that I'm always taken as the gender that I feel I am. And, you know, I'm not what some people would refer to as visibly queer to most people. Like, there are some asexual people who are not automatically assumed to be straight because of how they look or how they present or who they associate with. Me, I'm generally, you know, people will look at me and assume, oh, she's probably a straight woman. Like, those kind of people, you know, the people that go through their lives kind of assuming everyone is straight until proven gay. So I don't personally deal with that. I'm usually assumed straight by closed-minded people, and because of that, there's a certain amount of privilege that comes with that, and I am completely on board with accepting that that is true in my case. In some other people's cases, it is not so true. But because of that, I could see why some people would say, well, you're more like a cisgender straight person than you are a queer person. I disagree on what makes you actually be a straight identity, because somebody else mistaking me for straight is not the same thing as me being straight and experiencing straight privilege the same way. Maybe the same way as somebody who was assigned or designated male at birth but is actually a trans woman. You know, they may be treated with so-called male privilege, but it's not affecting them the same way if internally they're a woman. So, you know, it gets very difficult to tease out what each thing is likely to affect each person, and we're all going to be affected different ways based on just our internal makeup, our socialization, our family, the amount of acceptance that happens in our community. So basically it's very hard to figure out exactly, you know, where is the overlap with, you know, societal expectations, and how much is it really affecting us? How much am I benefiting from somebody mistaking me for straight, in other words? So anyway, to get back to kind of the flip side of this, which is what initially made me really angry and made me want to make this video, is that because of all of this sort of thing that's going on, seeing acephobia come out of people who I feel should know better, the flip side of that, which is ace people being homophobic or transphobic, it makes me so angry because, okay, I'm an activist in this community, and I have a pretty good audience of folks who will listen to what I say, so I hope that you know, I have a little bit more control over this community, in that I can get a message out to you folks and let you know how much this matters. You should know better than to be homophobic or transphobic, and if you ever think that it is a good thing or that it's a helpful thing to our community to say, to bring up AIDS as some kind of like just punishment for sexual people, if you ever equate disease or unwanted pregnancy or poverty or promiscuity with lower morals, and you associate those things with being trans or being gay or being bi, being poly, being pansexual, any of these alternative forms from being what people think of the default as straight and cisgender, like if you ever use their sexuality or what you perceive to be diseases or disorders or consequences of their sexual behavior as being things that don't apply to us, and that you can therefore be better than them, cleaner than them, purer than them, that is extremely elitist, and it is not helpful to the legitimacy of our community, and it is hateful. Now, I don't care if you're only saying these things to straight people. Don't say these things. And also, you need to accept that, especially in the case of LGBTQ groups, they have been demonized for their sexuality forever. And when you say things that you think are, I don't know, things that are ace positivity, but they're really sex negativity, it's affecting LGBTQ people more strongly. It's more hateful to say those things to them because of how consistently their sexual behavior and their desires have been treated as if they're unnatural, treated as if they are more animalistic, or make them less of a person, make them deserve fewer rights, oppress them along religious lines. Basically, any kind of sex-related hatred that you can dish out is going to be worse for LGBTQ people. And in the case of when there's overlap, you see ace lesbians, you see ace gay guys, you see trans ace people who have to deal with it from inside their community and from us. And it's baffling to me that there are still people out there who don't see the problem with this, who really think that it makes any sense to divide against LGBTQ people because there's like this perception that they're helping to oppress us, or that we're lower on the pole than they are. That, you know, they still have some kind of sexual privilege, which to them is not generally a privilege, because of what it turns around and does to them in mainstream society. And again, I'm not going to say that it's not possible for somebody who's gay or somebody who's trans to be acephobic, because it absolutely is. It's disgusting when it happens. But in our community, we can not sink to the levels of some of the worst people. I don't want us to think that we're helping ourselves by being sex negative in ways that can harm queer people. And I just don't even know what else to say, because I feel like I shouldn't have to say don't be transphobic, don't be homophobic, but hopefully I've given a little bit of clarification to why some of the things that I've seen our population say are very bad in general, but worse for LGBTQ people. I mean, do you understand that saying these things is worse for them, toward them, because of what they've been denied and because of what's at the root of what makes them a marginalized population? It's just... And I'll end on this, especially since almost every group of people that calls itself queer, calls itself LGBTQ, calls itself any kind of rainbow positivity or, inclusive queer group, has been so fantastic to me as an ace person, still knowing that I wasn't trans, that I wasn't identifying as lesbian, that they were welcoming, they accepted and welcomed the education that I offered. They understood where the overlaps are in our community. They understood how much value we can bring, how much we can offer support, what kinds of unusual innovations and insights that we can have that can help them navigate their intimacy and understand their pieces of society that they can put together and be part of, that we have something of value to offer. And I have felt more at home in those groups than I have among groups where I'm the only person who's not straight. I've felt like they're more family than, groups of cisgender heterosexual people. I mean, obviously most of my friends are of that description, because I don't do a lot of active friend gathering in queer spaces, but the places that I've been invited into have been so wonderful for the most part, and I've only had a few in-person isolated conversations with LGBTQ people that were disappointing or scary. I've certainly had a lot more awful conversations in, more typical groups as far as sexuality and gender goes. Like, I'm not trying to demonize them, but they just tend to be less aware of the stuff that affects us, and have less training and less experience in what might be insensitive to say, what might be really alienating, what might make me feel unsafe, and just operate by very normalized perceptions of what everyone does. Whereas the queer groups that I've gone to generally weren't like that. Nobody's perfect, but I've felt a lot safer in groups that are educated on those issues, and I can see how much we have in common. I can see how much we really need each other, and I'm very tired of having conversations with people only to find out, like, this other ace person that I thought had something in common with me is actually a homophobe, or is actually really insensitive about the ways that they're hurting other people. And I really want you to pay attention to what you're saying. And, like has happened with me, because I guess my words are so widely read and widely seen. It is possible that you could totally be saying something similar to the kinds of things that I've said that's completely, it's misconstrued and misunderstood. But in every case that's happened to me, where someone said, like, oh, she's lesbophobic or something like that, I'll listen to what they're saying, and I'll look at what they're quoting, and I'll say, is it possible that I did or said something that was unintentionally hurtful? What can I do to do better? And ultimately, like, everything that I'm talking about, you go on the person's blog and you'd see, oh, they spend a lot of time attacking other groups, or hatefully calling asexual people cishets. So you got to consider the source when you deal with people like that. You're not automatically a transphobe or a homophobe just because somebody says that you are, any more than they're automatically an acephobe if we say that they are. But try to be aware, try to be understanding, try to be open to the possibility that something you're doing or saying could be having an effect that you don't intend. And I really hope you don't intend it, and that you're here in these spaces because you want to make things better for all of us. You understand what we have in common, and you want to dedicate yourself to at least not causing any more pain, if not making it better for everyone to the best of your ability. So I'm going to end this one here, and I guess I'll see y'all next time.